You're a grown-ass individual, and if you don't want to do it or it doesn't make sense, then don't do it. I'm Michael Mogill, founder and CEO of Crisp, the nation's #1 law firm growth company. I've built my business through practice, not theory. Crisp started with just $500 to my name and has grown to over 8 figures in revenue over the last few years, earning a spot on the Inc. 500 list of the fastest growing private companies in America. Our approach has been to take everything we've learned about generating massive growth within our own organization and help the country's most ambitious and committed law firm owners do the same for theirs. In each episode of this podcast, I sit down with innovative market leaders from the legal industry and beyond to learn from those who thrive in the face of adversity, challenge the status quo, and define what it means to be a true game changer.
This is Jessica, head of coaching strategy at Crisp, and today we're flipping the script for another special edition episode to get Michael's take on navigating the complex emotions of outgrowing a long-standing friend group, recognizing when it's time to move on from an organization that no longer serves you, and how to move beyond the role of industry expert to become a student again.
I think to be able to be competitive in business, you always have to be learning, you always have to be evolving. It's a constant state of change, grow or die. So if you are not constantly developing new skills and continuously pushing ahead, then the business is going to become less competitive and you're going to stagnate.
That's coming up on the Game Changing Attorney podcast. All right, welcome back to the studio. First one of 2026.
Another year, another podcast.
Yes, indeed.
Well, I hope you guys had a good holiday. I think it was Larry David said that the latest you could wish somebody a Happy New Year, I think it was like January 4th or January 5th or something like that. I think at some point you can no longer say that, right? Like you can't be like February 1st saying Happy New Year. You'd be like a psychopath, right? And our youngest daughter, every time we come home, and she comes home from school, she says, Happy New Year, everybody. Right now, it's awesome, right?
Yeah.
But I think if she keeps saying that, like later, like a few weeks from now, we might be like, all right, girl.
Right, we have to switch it. Let it be noted. It started with Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Which we turned into the Christmas and turned into the New Year. So we're going to have to evolve to the next holiday.
So I have a story from the break that I'd like to share before we get going on these questions. And I think it's relevant just because there's a lot of people that coming into the new year that have New Year's resolutions and have new goals that they'll set in their business and their life, like transformations that they want to make. I'm sure a lot of people listening to this podcast have things that they want to accomplish and they want to do this year that they didn't accomplish last year, right? And what I want to share is that we went to Mexico with the girls over the break, and it was, just the 4 of us all sharing one room, 2 beds, each with 1 kid.
Yes.
And I remember one night, so we were going to go out to dinner, and our oldest, Mila, she says to me, I think it was like 4:00, she says, I am satisfied. I am not going to eat anything for dinner tonight. And I said, okay, are you sure about that? She said, yes, I'm not going to eat anything at all. And I said, not even dessert? She said, no, I'm not going to eat dessert. And I said, all right, record this video because I don't believe you.
Yes.
So I filmed the video and I said, Mila, tonight, are you going to eat anything at dinner? Are you going to eat any dessert? And she's like, no dinner, no dessert. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I put the video away. So we go to dinner. First thing, bread comes out. And she's like, let me get 1 piece of bread, all right? Then they come around with the orders.
Yes.
And this girl orders herself like a mac and cheese plate. And I'm like, maybe she's going to have like 1 or 2 mac and cheese. But no, she crushed almost all of it. Then comes time for dessert.
I know where this
and
is.
And this dessert was massive. Like this was like a massive dessert. Like it literally was like this huge plate they brought out and they just broke it over the table and all these chocolate pieces. And it was just...
Yes, this is no ordinary dessert.
This is a phenomenal dessert.
Yes.
And this girl's digging in and everything. And now I didn't bring it up, right? Because if she's hungry, it's great. Let her eat.
Right.
I didn't bring it up and say, hey, earlier today, you said you weren't going to have any dinner or dessert, right? Because she was digging in and it's your kid. But our daughter's 7 years old. So what is the moral of this story? When it comes to your New Year's resolutions or goal setting, don't act like a fucking child. So my point is that in the moment where you are setting the goals, let's say it's a moment of logic. These are the things that I want to accomplish in my firm, here's my health, family, etc., and so on. And then there comes a time where you kind of find yourself in an emotional state.
The temptation.
Right? You're tempted, you start to negotiate with yourself, and you're saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to do kind of a soft transition into my New Year's resolutions, right? I'm going to start next Monday, or I'm going to start February 1st. I'm going to start whatever, right? And I'll tell you what, maybe you do need to record a video of all the things that you say you're going to do at the start of this year, and then make a mental note and look at that video again at the end of this year in December and see how many of those things did you accomplish.
Say look at it before December.
Well, because here's the thing. Look, I believe the human mind is very, very sophisticated, the human brain, right? So if you get into a habit of continuously following through on your commitments to yourself, then you gain what is called, I guess, discipline to some extent. And if you set a lot of goals or are ambitious but never follow through, well, then when you do set another goal, your brain's going to be like, nah, motherfucker, you're not going to do those things. You might say, hey, I'm not going to have any more, I'm not going to drink any alcohol like this entire month. And your brain's like, yeah, right. We know you're not going to do that because you said that last time. Right. Or whatever the goal is. Right. So I think it helps to start having these like small wins that compound over time. And like, look, you can set something small and say, hey, I'm just going to make my bed tomorrow morning. Or I'm just going to get up at this time, or I'm going to bed at this time. And if you start to stack those types of like small wins, you start to build confidence, and then that can lead to, greater commitments. So that's what I would encourage you to do. Record a video for you. You don't even have to share it. If you share it, it creates greater accountability. I think it's great if you share it, right? And you could say, hey, everybody, here's what I'm going to do. And now they've got receipts. And then, a month from now or a year from now, right, at the end of this year, they can look back on that and say, I mean, it'd be a pretty boss play to be like, I think it was Pitbull, the music artist, did this years ago, where he said, all right, I'm going to, here's what's going to happen in my career. I'm going to release this album, then this album, then this album, and I'm going to grow this. And he did all of it. Yeah. Right? He laid out the plan and then executed on it over the span of several years. It was incredibly impressive. He's like, here's what's going to happen. And then it happened.
I would actually challenge someone to text you their video.
Oh, yeah. Text me your video. Text me your video of what you are going to accomplish this year. And I mean, how impressive would it be if you did everything that you set out to do, and then you were able to look back on that and say, oh, wow, it's just a level of self-respect that you gain. Yes. So anyway, I just want to share that start of the podcast. Yes. Very, a great holiday. But here we are, 2026. This is the AMMA. You guys submit questions. We answer them on the show. You can submit the questions. You can text us at 404-531-7691 with your questions. Jessica compiles them, and then we answer them here on the show. And if you're tuning in for the first time, we have other types of episodes. We've got interview-style episodes. We bring on a guest from the legal industry and beyond. And then we have the encore editions. We bring back some of our most popular episodes, and you get to re-listen to them. Or if you haven't heard them before, it's a great way to be able to stay up to speed with 500-plus podcast episodes. So the only thing I will say is that we do not charge a fee for the show, and we do not actually run any ads on the show. The only thing we ask is that if you get any sort of value from the show, that you leave us a review or share the show with a friend. That's all that I ask, and we will keep the show free. So, Jessica, what do we have this week on the podcast?
All right. To kick us off, question number 1. Hey, Michael, I feel like I had an epiphany when I was working on my New Year's resolutions this year. I didn't want to face it, but I'm starting to realize that I'm on a completely different path than all of my closest friends. We're all in our 40s, and lately I find it harder and harder to relate with their lifestyle. When I'm with them, I feel like I'm regressing and falling back into old habits, but these guys I've known for decades. I don't want to be that asshole who thinks he's too good for his friends, but I also can't afford any distractions from my goal this year. Have you ever outgrown a friend group? Part of me wants to make a clean break in the new year, but I also don't want to abandon people who I've known forever.
Yeah,
it's lonely.
This is a pretty common struggle, I think, especially with ambitious and high-achieving individuals.
Yes.
So what I can say is that either you adapt to your environment or your environment adapts to you. And the way to look at it might be that, with you being around your friend group, and let's say you are leveling up, whatever that looks like. Maybe you're becoming more successful professionally. Maybe you're, getting in great shape, whatever. There's going to be certain friends groups that look at that, and maybe initially they're like, oh man, Jonah, why are you not drinking anymore? Or nah, you're eating healthy. What are you too good for us? And then eventually they start to see you kind of leaning out, and then you're getting ripped. And then it could go down the path of one person sees it, and then they're like, okay, well, and then the law firm is thriving, and they see a brand new, I don't know, a Range Rover in the driveway, and one of them goes, okay, well, I'm going to start doing what he's doing.
Right.
Right. And then, one becomes two, and then two becomes three, and you influence that way. At the same time, it could go the opposite way, where they could be like, hey man, why are you doing all this stuff? And they think because they're threatened, because you make them uncomfortable, because you remind them perhaps of all the things that they gave up on. And that's all that really is, right? Like I think envy is one of the worst human emotions that can possibly exist, right? It benefits nobody, right? And especially when it's your friends, right? Or so-called friends. So I would look at it more so from the standpoint that it's not unusual if you change for other people to not change at the exact same time that you were changing and evolving. And that doesn't mean necessarily that's a bad thing. If people are giving you a hard time about it, I mean, sometimes, it is what it is, right? You are different by design. You're making different choices. I'll tell you, if you want to free yourself of any sort of criticism, just be like everybody else and do the same thing everybody else does, and no one's going to bother you or give you a hard time.
Does Nick Saban say, sell ice cream?
Yeah.
Do you want to make everybody happy?
Yeah, exactly. So if you're going to step outside the box to some degree, like there's going to be people that look at it and say, wow, like that is different, right? Like we always, we watch football on Thursday, and we watch football on Saturday, and then we watch football on Sunday, and then this person's like studying and they're like, developing their skill set or, whatever. I'll tell you, no matter what it is, like there's going to be friends that come with you, and then you're going to make new friends in new circles, right? So, I mean, there's the guys that go out all night and, they wake up the next morning hungover, and then there's the people that go to bed early and they wake up the next morning and go for a run, right? Or go for a bike ride. And there's enough people from each type of circle to where you can associate yourself with those people. Now, I will say generally, the more successful you become, the more likely you are to start aligning with people with different habits and better habits. I would say probably healthier habits.
Yeah.
Just because I think part of professional growth and professional development almost at some point necessitates making better decisions in other aspects of your life just to maintain longevity in professional growth.
Right.
Right. Like you start to see a lot of CEOs that now start prioritizing their health because they recognize that they're in a very high stress role, that they can't just get 5 hours of sleep a night and not take care of themselves and not exercise and not eat well. It's just that they're not able to be a great leader as a result of that. So now they start gravitating towards healthier habits. I look at it more so from the standpoint that, what are your goals? I would certainly recommend that you don't slow down just because someone doesn't approve of you bettering yourself in some way. But I also think that, personal excellence is a wonderful thing, and it can be very inspiring to other people. So if they're not inspired by it and, they don't like it and they give you a hard time, then you can find people that are, more aligned and will support you and advocate for you. Those people do exist, but it's a kind of a strange concept to believe that the people you came up with and the people you grew up with, that everybody is going to evolve at the same rate and evolve at the same pace. What you had in common with those people early on may not be the same thing you have in common with them today. So, I mean, a lot of times, look, I had friends from high school, and the things we had in common was we lived in the same neighborhood. Today, we no longer have that in common because we live in different places.
Right.
But that's how we all came together, just because we happen to live in the same neighborhood and we played street hockey together, and it was just all our houses were pretty close, right? So then we just naturally became friends. People grow and evolve, and their interests, change, and their careers change, and so on. It doesn't mean that, some people are good or some people are bad. It's more so just to do with people change.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing at
all. But you can find a peer group that supports you. And I think that's the most important thing. When you have positive momentum, you should find circles that support and advocate and want to see you grow and improve. You don't want to be around envy, anything look.
It's hard enough. It's
Correct.
hard enough without that drag.
Correct.
All right. Question number 2. Hey, Michael, I've been part of a state bar association committee for the past decade, and I've realized I'm getting absolutely nothing out of it anymore. When I joined, it was valuable networking and I learned a lot. Now I'm the one teaching salees and mentoring new attorneys, but I'm not growing from it. The problem is I'm vice chair and supposed to move into the chair position next year. Everyone's expecting me to step it up. It would be a prestigious role, and declining would definitely burn some bridges. But honestly, I don't want to spend another 3 years in leadership of something that doesn't serve me anymore just because it's the right career move. How do you walk away from professional obligations that look good on paper but feel like a waste of time?
Well,
you gotta be selfish.
Yeah. Remember I took a year or two ago, we took one of these personality assessments, and that one that I scored highest in was insouciance. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting word.
That was a new word for me.
What does insouciance mean? And insouciance essentially means that you do not care what other people think of you, right? So here's the way I would look at this. Early on in one's life, you've got to take all these classes and all these AP classes and do all this volunteering because you're trying to get into college. And then I remember when I was in college, I did all of this volunteering at the hospital and doctor's offices because I was trying to get into med school. and all of these things that would look good because you want to look good to, be able to
advance,
right?
Yeah.
Nowadays, when you're an adult, like, are you really playing that game still? Like, do you really still need to get the badges and the validation and so on? I don't know. I look at it as you're a grown-ass individual, and if you don't want to do it or it doesn't make sense, then don't do it. I mean, I also look at it from the standpoint of trade-offs. When you're spending your time there, like vice chair or chair, like what does that, prevent you from doing? I know a lot of people that have taken on certain leadership roles on boards and various organizations when their business was failing, right? Like it's flailing, and it's like, oh, I'm on this board and that board and that board. And it's like, look, your law firm needs you.
Right, you're doing everything except
your team needs you. Maybe your family needs you. I think everything is a trade-off, right? So there's an opportunity cost to, making one commitment, and what does that, prevent you from being able to do? And is the juice worth the squeeze? And is that trade-off worth it? And it sounds like it's not worth it. So what do you do? Well, you politely decline, and maybe there's going to be people that are like, how could you, and all that, but they'll eventually get over it. And like, here's the thing, they will eventually get over it.
Yeah.
No different than the fact that I also think like the concept of legacy is an interesting one in the sense that we want to leave a legacy, but it's like, I mean, think about it. How many generations from now, like 1-2 generation skips, and like, is someone really going to remember you? I mean, think about like really famous people, right? Like really, like, let's say like Robin Williams, right? You think 5 generations from now, people are going to remember Robin Williams, right? Like there's U.S. presidents that people don't remember anymore. You got to live your life, and you got to do the things that align with your values and what makes sense for you. And those that will agree with it will agree with it, and those that don't agree with it, I mean, look, if you're going to spend your time explaining, you're going to waste a lot of time.
Yeah.
You're not going to change anybody's mind. They may feel the way that you do, but I think you're
trying to make yourself feel better when you explain.
Correct. I think there's something to be said about a well-lived life. I mean, I give this example, like just years and years ago when our girls were born, I used to go to a lot of legal conferences. I used to go to, I don't know, like 13, 14, 15 a year. I'd speak at a lot of these conferences. And I think it was it 2019 or so, I stopped doing it. And, our conference is in Atlanta for that reason, right? Because I don't want to travel. I don't want to go to these things. And it's not to say I don't want to be around these people. I don't want to be around these people. But that's not the primary reason that I don't go. I don't go because I don't want to be away from our kids. Like, I like being home. I like being with the family. And maybe there's like some trade-offs and where maybe the business could have grown more, I'd have been out there and networking more. Maybe not. I think to some extent, I remember John Morgan shared this with me one time, to where he believes that his firm really took off because while a lot of lawyers were going from like conference to conference to conference to conference, he was focusing on building Morgan & Morgan. And I think that sometimes you got to really make sure like home base is taken care of, that your life, your family, your business, everything you got going on, that's in a really good place. Because I see people trying to escape from that, and going on the road somewhere, and I don't know, just so somebody can give them some sort of validation and like their posts on social media. I don't know. Just if you don't want to do it, don't do it.
There you go. All right, to round us out today with question number 3, Michael, I've been running my law firm for almost 20 years now, and I honestly feel like after this long in the business, I figured out most aspects of running a successful practice. I've built a 7-figure firm in a pretty competitive market. I'm based in South Texas. I've got great trial lawyers, I know my market, and I know my business model. I feel like I really understand the industry. The problem is that now most legal networking events I attend feel repetitive. The advice feels obvious, and I'm usually the one giving insights rather than receiving them. Where do you go to keep learning?
Well, hold on there, big dog. So, I'll answer this in 2 ways. One is I think you find rooms where you may not be the biggest fish in the pond. Like where you come in, you're like baby shark, right? There's a lot of really, really people that are ahead of you in different areas. And let's say if you're trying to grow the law firm, that they're ahead of where you are and perhaps made mistakes that you haven't yet made, and like can offer insight, and you just essentially are further along the path. I also think there's something to be said about being open-minded to learning from all sorts of people and all sorts of peer groups. Sometimes it's not even learning at a legal conference. Sometimes it's going to other industry conferences, reading. I mean, what do? I listen to everything but legal. Yeah. Right? I see what are the trends, what's going on in like AI and software and in just
anything else,
medical industry, et cetera. Like there's so much. I mean, most of the podcasts that I listen to aren't legal podcasts.
No.
Right? Because you really want to like look at what are other industries doing?
Bigger.
I mean, you can learn from, look, I learned things from the esports industry.
Yeah.
I learned things from gaming, right? Like it's streamers, right? And there's a lot of innovation that's happening there. Like you see what recently took place in terms of like at CES, that technology conference, and like what they all unveiled, and like what's happening in terms of, Peter Diamandis recently did a podcast with Elon Musk where he talked, to him about what's happening in robotics and healthcare and et cetera. Like there's so much that you can learn that does not, I think pertains specifically to legal today, but may in the future. So that's part one. Part two is you've been at this for 20 years and you built a 7-figure firm. Now, I'm not going to poo-poo this, but I will say that I don't know that at that point that you could say that you figured it all out. And first of all, I think you deserve a tremendous amount of recognition because most businesses in America don't even get to 7 figures, right? It's a small number. It's like 1%. And like you deserve a lot of credit for that. But there's a lot of firms that have gotten to 8 figures and even 9 figures. And there's levels to the game that I don't know that I would start to think that I've figured it out until I've gotten a little bit further, right? Because, you may get to, let's say 7 figures. I don't know if that means 1 million or if that means 9 million.
Right.
But regardless, if you've been at it for 20 years, what do the next 20 years look like? Are we still growing at the same pace? Are we kind of hovering? Are we plateauing? Like what needs to change in order to do that? What if you came across a firm like yours that's at 15 million or 20 million, right? I mean, there's probably a lot that you can learn from something like that. So I do think it's important to always maintain a student mindset of you just don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And if you get away from that too much and you start to think, oh man, I figured it all out, like that's where I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs get humbled and, you start to regress. So
the danger zone.
Yeah, because I think to be able to be competitive in business, you always have to be learning. You always have to be evolving. It's a constant state of change, right? Grow or die. So if you are not constantly developing new skills and continuously pushing ahead, then the business is going to become less competitive and you're going to stagnate.
Yeah.
So that's what I'll say to that.
All right. That's all we've got today.
Cool. Until next time.
You've been listening to the Game Changing Attorney podcast with Michael Mogill. If you found this episode valuable, here are 3 free ways that we can help you grow your law firm. Number 1, download the first chapter of Michael's book absolutely free at gamechangingattorney.com. Number 2, you can shoot Michael a text at 404-531-7691 and ask him any question you'd like. You might just hear the answer on the next episode. And finally, number 3, if you can leave this podcast a 5-star review, it will help us gain access to more influential thought leaders and bring their lessons learned here to you. For more information on this episode, see the show notes in your podcast app or visit legalpodcast.com.